Amen. Yeah, so very good evening. I had a chance to listen to the word that you guys were listening to yesterday from Pastor Smart. Quite an awesome word. And so just to give you an introduction of who I am, my name is Simba Musonza, and that's my wife, Belinda Musonza. We've been married for about 12 years now. And we've been running a business together for I think about nine years, almost 10 years. So I've been given the task to share with you guys ideas on how to grow a business. And the honest truth is I wish I had a formula to say this is how you do it from A, B, C to D. So what I'm sharing with you today is not based on, if I may say, we haven't yet made it. My wife and I, as we are running our business, we haven't yet made it. We are still, I wouldn't want to use the word struggling as such, but striving for greater things, for certain things. And over the years, there have been, I would say perhaps, more disappointments than actual success stories in running our business, but the success stories are quite, for us, although there might be few or they might be small, to us they are actually quite a great deal that we continuously build on top of. So just to give you a background of our business, we are into IT generally, but we develop and we build systems, and one area that we felt God calling us about 8 years or so ago is that we start using our skills and our business to bring about change in our communities, in our society, and also in our country. So what we started doing is we started building software systems that can be used in government in Zimbabwe to help especially disadvantaged communities get sustainable development, to bring about transparency and accountability in government. So it's been a difficult road to do what we have managed to do, but one thing that we are thankful to God for is we've been able to do quite a number of things that we could not have done in our own strength. But we believe that by God's help, we've been able to get there. And so we've been able to see amazing things that we haven't designed ourselves, that we didn't plan for ourselves, happen through us. So we've managed to have projects that have connected the whole country, so to speak. And I would say one of the platforms that we have built for sustainable development in Zimbabwe has actually become the biggest single-run government systems in Zimbabwe. And we've had amazing stories that even have overtaken us. I remember in December we were just informed while we were on holiday, struggling with the lockdowns and COVID, that, hey, one of the systems that you guys have developed has actually won an award in Washington, D.C., and has been recognized as a platform that has, that has impacted 6 million lives in Zimbabwe. And why am I sharing this with you guys is because for us it's an amazing story, because we did not have anything special apart from the deep calling that we felt God was giving us, that we wanted to do something not just to make millions of dollars, but to bring about change in millions of lives. So to us, when we heard in December that, look, your platform, your system, what you guys have done has been recognized as they call it the Millions Lives Club, as something that has impacted at least 6 million lives in Zimbabwe, and we're still going. So to us, it's a story that it's like a dream come true. So I wish I had on one side, I also wish I had the millions to say, look, this is what we have done. But to hear that it has impacted 1 million lives, 6 million lives, and we're still going, because our aim is to go for 10 million lives in Zimbabwe. So here is a story that we are sharing with you today. And what we are sharing with you is not the ultimate formula to say this is how you grow a business, but it's the life lessons that we have had over the past 9 years of striving to see these things come into fruition. And as I've said, we have seen a lot more failures than successes, but the successes themselves are nothing to be discounted because of the failures that we have seen. And if I read through the Bible, we see the many men of God that we read through in the Bible, apart from Jesus himself, we can't find one man who walked through his life without any failures. The Bible says Moses was probably the greatest of all men, apart from Jesus, but he had his own failures. Can you imagine having led people for 40 some years in a desert and then coming to the edge of the story and then God telling you that, look, here's the promised land, but you are not going to go into it. You have done your part. You have done this. I've selected for myself Joshua. He's the one who's going to take over. And so as we come together today dreaming, what that tells me is that our failures are nothing compared to the successes that God achieves through us. So we see in the Bible great men, great women that have had many success stories used by God, but they also had their failures. And those failures are not what we focus on, but it's the successes that we focus on. Although we say we've got many lessons that we can learn from their failures, but the successes that came are the reason why we are here today still preaching this gospel. So the title of my message today is Dreamer, grow in your business. So instead of giving you a formula to say, go do this today and start growing your business, but I would like to say you are to grow in your business. You know, as young men, as young women, God has got one thing for you, is that you grow in all aspects of your life. He wants you to grow in stature, to grow spiritually, to grow in your finances, to grow even in your thinking, to grow in your abilities, and above all, to grow in his ways. So there's one thing that God has as a plan and as a design for all of you as young people. It is that you grow. And I just thought of what you were talking of today about Joseph being the dreamer that we all identify with in the Bible. And it tells us in the Bible that Joseph was about 16, 17 when he started having his dreams. And one thing that I like when you read through the story of Joseph is that his dreams were not popular, were they? They were really not popular, and they were the ones that got him in trouble, because his brothers started hating him particularly more when he started telling them about his dreams. But he did not design the dreams himself. He got those dreams. They came to him from God. So his dreams were not popular with his brothers. His dreams were not even popular with his own parents. I remember when his father says, look, you're saying you dreamt of the moon, the sun, and the 11 stars bowing before you. Does it mean that my mother and I shall also come and bow before you? But what we understand from that story is that God was giving Joseph a view of what he was about to do with him, a view of the growth path or the journey that he was about to go with him. So I'm going to look at two things before I just give you maybe what I call 4 principal points to look at as you explore growing your businesses. But this is not just about how to grow your business, but as in the standard or the general sense of it. But I'm hoping this might also help you if you are also still going through your studies, starting a career, hoping to start a business, planning to start a business, just getting started on your business, or you've already started that business and you'd like to see how you can keep on going. So I'm just going to share with you these things based on what I have learned, based on what we have learned, my wife and I and everybody and the people that we have partnered with in running our own businesses, our own initiatives, and having achieved what we have achieved and even failed at some of the things that we have failed. So I'd like to start with sharing with you my reference scripture. It's in Genesis chapter 49. This is when Jacob was blessing his sons, his 12 sons. And I would like to focus on the blessing that he prays or that he speaks over Joseph himself. Genesis 49, this is what Jacob says. Joseph is a fruitful vine by a spring, whose branches scale the wall. The archers attacked him with bitterness. They aimed at him in hostility. Yet he steadied his bow, and his strong arms were tempered by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, in the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. by the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens above, with blessings of the depths below, with blessings of the breast and womb. The blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of the ancient mountains and the bounty of the everlasting hills. May they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince of his brothers. This is what Jacob speaks over Joseph. And we know that Joseph's life has got this mighty ending where he is now in the higher office in Egypt. And what Joseph has done, because of Joseph, because of how God has used him, because of the visions and the dreams that he has had, Joseph did not only help his family, but he helped a great nation. Back then, Egypt was such a great and mighty civilization. And Joseph, if I may say to an extent, single-handedly saved this great nation from starvation. Not only did he save that nation, but even the surrounding nations, because we hear that a lot of nations around would come to Egypt to buy grain. It was because of how God had used Joseph. But we understand that Joseph, to get to where he got to be, it was through a lot of adversity. It was through a lot of difficulties, from facing certain death when he was thrown into the pit by his brothers, to being sold into slavery, being falsely or wrongly accused, and being thrown into prison, and then coming back again. It was a journey that God took him through. So this is the story that we hear, that the archers attacked him with bitterness. There was adversity in his life. There was adversity in Joseph's life. I can imagine if any one of us today were to survive or live through the story of Joseph, not many of us would look forward to what was coming next after each and every single stage. But it's the same position that we find ourselves today as young people. You know, many times you are told as young people that Zimbabwe is a difficult place. It's a place where dreams have died, a place where hopes and aspirations have died. Starting a business is insane because investment comes and it dies in Zimbabwe. There are no careers, there are no jobs in Zimbabwe. But what do you do when you find yourself in this place? What do you do when you find yourself in this season, in this time? So the first thing that I would like to share with you is that it is not the environment, it is not the season, it is not the circumstances that brings growth. It is God that brings growth. So just remember that the harvest that the farmer gets is not because of the soils, it's not because of the rains, it's not because of the cool climate or the right conditions, but it's because of the God who created those conditions. So the first thing to remember is that it's not the environment that you are in, or the season that you are in, or the circumstances that you find yourself in that bring you the growth, the harvest, the success that you need in your endeavors. It is God who brings that. If you read the story of Isaac. Isaac finds himself in a similar position that his father was in. If you read through the book of Genesis, chapter 26, let me just see if I can briefly find it here. So Isaac found himself in a position where the place where he was in, the land where he was in, was facing a great famine. And the Bible even says that this famine was greater than the one that Abraham had seen. And this is what you read in Genesis chapter 26 from verse 1. It says, "Now there was a great famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him there and said, 'Do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands. And I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands. And in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws.'" And it goes on to say in verse 12, "And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold because the Lord had blessed him. It doesn't say because the conditions were right. It doesn't say because, but it says, look, he harvested 100-fold, so much that the people that were around him started to envy him. And if you keep on reading chapter of the subsequent verses of chapter 26, you learn that they actually started sabotaging him because they were now becoming threatened by his success. So the story that we learn there is that Isaac was bound for Egypt, probably because he was escaping what? The famine, the hunger, the hostility of the environment that he was coming from. And God stops him to say, look, do not go to Egypt. Dwell in the land that I shall show you. It is not because of that land that you're getting blessed, but it's because of me. Because I'm the one who's coming to fulfill the promise that I gave to your father, Abraham. I'm the one who will cause for you to get this great harvest. I'm the one who will bring the multiplication of your descendants. And I'm the one who will make sure that your descendants shall find that prosperity in that land. Would you believe it if I tell you that as long as you find yourself in Zimbabwe, there is a great harvest, there's a great growth that God needs to bring through you. You see, God is a God who grows things. Without God, there's no growth because God is the one who gives life. Everything that we see growing is something that comes from the blessing of God or the creation of God or the mind of God. Because God is the one who brings about growth. So we say that living things are things that what? Things that grow. And all living things are made by who? The maker and the creator. But the story to learn there is firstly growth. We are looking for growth. Growth in our careers, growth in our businesses, growth in our studies, our finances. And even as young people, we want to see growth paths. We want to move from this point to that point. We want to see growth maybe in our relationships. But now think about it. What is it that makes your relationships, your financial status, your businesses, your careers, what is it that will make anything in your life grow? I'll say look to God. He's the one who's able to bring all things grow. Even if you find yourself in a hostile environment, even if you find yourself in an impossible environment, think about it. How was God able to feed an entire nation for 40-some years in a desert where they were not sowing and where they were not cultivating, but he was able to feed an entire nation? Not one family, not a tribe, but an entire nation, to feed them and to clothe them through a dry and hostile environment for more than 40 years. It's the same place that we find ourselves. So this is what I would challenge you today with and share with you to say, if you're looking for growth, if you're looking for abundance, if I would say a breakthrough of seeing the impossible come to be like a harvest or something, do not look to the environment, but look to God, the one who commands the environment. So that's the first thing about growth. It is God who gives that growth. It is God who gives the increase. Paul shares with the Corinthians to say, look, I might have planted, Apollos came and he watered, but it is God who brings the increase. So that's an important thing to remember as young people. And then again, being dreamers. We are here today because I certainly identify as a dreamer. When we started with my wife running the business, when we started out on the business that we were running, I remember it was a very difficult time for us. If I remember correctly, I just left a job because I was seeing no growth for me there. And I said, look, this has always been my dream since I was in high school. I've always wanted to start this company, and I'm seeing possibly there is an opportunity. And I remember when we started, we had less than $200, and we had a child that was back then, I think, 9 months old. Our daughter, our firstborn daughter, she was about 9 months old. It was a bit of a difficult time for us, but we had this dream to say, look, we believe that we've been called to do this. We are not seeing anyone else particularly doing it in Zimbabwe. We have done snippets of it outside Zimbabwe, and we've seen it work. Zimbabwe is particularly a difficult time right now, a difficult season, but we believe that we can do it. We started out, and I believe within the first month, we were seeing ourselves being called to meetings that we didn't think that we would be called up to, but it was because we said, look, let's just take that first step. We had that dream, and we believed that down the line it was going to happen. So that's what I believe being a dreamer is about. Being a dreamer is not about fantasies. Joseph did not see a fantasy. Caleb did not see a fantasy. You know the story of Caleb, right? When Caleb was one of the spies that were sent down to go and just scout out the land that Israel was about to go into as a nation. When they came back, all the other guys that Caleb had went with to scout that land, they said, look, it's an impossible and a hostile territory. We saw the men that were there. It's a great land. We can go there and we can prosper. There was a great fruit. As you can see, we've brought samples, but the people that we saw there are giants. We can't take them on. But what did Caleb do? He said, look, guys, who is sending you into that land? It is the God, the Lord of hosts. Is he not the same God that brought us through the desert? Is he not the same God that parted the waters and delivered us from the armies of Pharaoh? So that's what a dreamer does. A dreamer is a seer and a doer. You are a seer and you are a doer. You are not thinking up fantasies when we say you are a dreamer. So that's the kind of dreamer that Joshua was. That's the kind of dreamer that Caleb was. That's the kind of dreamer that Joseph was. So a dreamer is a seer as well as a doer. But what are you seeing when you are a dreamer? You see, when you are a dreamer, you see things God's way. That's the first thing. And not only do you see things God's way, but you are given deeper insights into what things really are. So you see deeper things, further things, things that are not of your own thinking or making, but things that are of God. So dreamers are seers and doers. So you see things that others don't see yet, but they will see eventually. Read about it in the Bible. How many times have you heard someone coming up in the Bible prophesying and people attacking that person, but then the prophecy coming true? All the way from Joseph. Even I can imagine Abraham getting up to say, look guys, I just dreamt it. I had a vision. I spoke to God and he says, get out of the land of your fathers. It was a good land. It was a healthy land. That's where his family was. Get out of the land of your fathers. I've got somewhere that I'm going to show you where you're going to settle. There was no address. There was no GPS coordinates. He was just told to get up and start going, and I'll show you that land when you get into it. So dreamers are seers. Can you imagine Abraham? What was he seeing? The Bible says later on that he believed him who promised as faithful. So what Abraham was seeing was the faithfulness of God. At a time when no one else could have understood it, Abraham was seeing the faithfulness of God. What was Job seeing when he was down in the ashes, where he was suffering, when he refused to deny or to curse his God? That's what a dreamer does. You see first what others will see eventually. So dreamers are seers, but not only are they seers, they are doers. So if you're a dreamer, you're also a doer. That's what faith does, isn't it? Faith does as faith sees. So if you're a dreamer, you are also a doer. But being doers as dreamers is where, what it means to me personally is, if I'm a dreamer in God's kingdom, I'm called not to just play the game, but I'm called to change the game. That's what being salt and light is about, isn't it? Because when the Bible says you are the light of the world, what does light do? Light comes in to replace darkness, doesn't it? Light comes in not to play with darkness, but to completely overcome the darkness. What does salt come to do? In Hebrew culture, they used to use salt as something that would, they would use it as a fertilizer, something that would fertilize cultivations, but they would also use it as a disinfectant in Hebrew culture. They wouldn't just use it as, in our culture, as shown us, they say that the only spice that we know is salt, just putting in food. But if it's got a deeper meaning when you look at it in Jewish culture, it was used also as a disinfectant. Salt was also used as a disinfectant. So what does it mean to disinfect something? It means that when there's disease or potential disease, you can change those circumstances. So if you're looking at yourselves as dreamers, you are seers and you are doers. And you see things that are not popular. The thing that Caleb saw was not popular. Imagine you are 12 guys. 11 say it's impossible. One guy comes and then he says, it's possible, it's doable. Who do you think you'll go with? If you've got 12 people, they'll say, look, we have gone together. This is our story. Will you listen to the one crazy guy, or you listen to the 11 guys that you say, look, reason says I must go with democracy. But God goes with the one guy. God does not go with 11 guys. God says, look, only my servant Caleb has had that faithful heart. So none of these guys are going to enter, but through my servant Caleb. So God went with that one guy that had that dream, that saw things God's way. So imagine today in Zimbabwe, how do you start to see things God's way? In a difficult time like this, how do you start things God's way, not other people's way, but seeing things God's way? Nobody stood with Joseph when he had his dreams, not his brothers, none of them, not his mother, not his father. Even his father said, are you crazy? Are you saying that me, your father, the one who's supposed to bless you, shall actually come and bow down to you. So it was an unpopular thing. So which means as a dreamer, you see things that are unpopular. So two things to remember is that dreamers are seers and doers. You don't see things your way. You don't see things through other people, but you see things God's way. And you have deeper insights. God gives you deeper insights into exactly what things are. So think about it today, in your situation, in our situation, in your generation's situation. Where are things going? Are you seeing things God's way? Are you searching for that deeper insight? See, in the Bible it says, God never turns down people that come to him with a humble heart, seeking wisdom. If you come to God seeking the wisdom, say, God, what is the wisdom of my time, the wisdom of my season? He will not deny you. Right. So I'm just also going to share with you just 4 quick points. To me personally, these are the 4 principal points that I believe that if I'm to grow as a person, grow my business, grow my finances, grow in my walk with God, I'm just going to focus on these 4 things in my life, and I'll make sure that those 4 things I'm committed to. Remember, what we're doing here is we're not just doing things like say, look, I want to grow a business, but you must remember that we are kingdom people. Whatever we do, as Murdoch has said, just be faithful, just be kingdom minded, be faithful with what God says, what God gives, and how God directs. So as young people, there are 4 things that I will share with you from my experiences that are called the principles of actually bringing about true growth in your life. These 4 things are purpose, space, time, and skill. So let me start with purpose. What does it mean to have purpose? You see, there's this word that many young people use nowadays. They say hustle. This is my hustle. This is my main hustle. This is my side hustle. But I'm here to share with you that I don't believe that hustling is a Christian thing. I'll challenge you today. Go look in the dictionary what the word hustle, where it originally came from. So to hustle essentially is when you force things to happen, you force things to go your way, you force things to fit in a certain way. But as Christians, we don't work with hustle, we work with purpose. Paul says in the first book of Corinthians chapter 9 verse 26, I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. In other words, I'm not hustling. I'm not just punching the air. I'm not just going about looking for my big break. But it says every step of the way, which means every single step that you take counts. So you don't work with a hustle. If a young person, you're doing your studies, you're starting a business, don't start a hustle. Start with a purpose. What is the purpose? And when we're looking at purpose as Christians, our main starting point of being Christian is that we're here to serve and not to be served. Just as Jesus Christ says, the Son of Man came, so not that he may be served, but that he might serve. So that's our main purpose as Christians. If I'm going to start something, what is the purpose? Am I able to continue to serve in that thing? So God is not able to grow anything that does not conform to his nature. God will not grow anything that does not come from his nature. He won't grow anything that does not comply with his being. So that's number one thing to remember when you're looking for purpose, is that am I able to continue serving God going down this path? Not only in your studies or your business, but even in your relationships. The relationships that you might be having, you might be dating, you might be having friends that you associate with, or even business partners. The first thing, ask yourself, what is the purpose of this relationship? Is the purpose of this relationship aligning well to God? Am I able to continue to serve? Because if you can't see yourself serving properly in a certain position or relationship or hustle, if I may say, then there's nothing that God can do to grow that thing. Because God only grows something that comes from or conforms to his own nature. The second thing is on space. For me, my wife knows I'm very passionate about this. When I see people starting business in Zimbabwe, many times I start to boil when I see people doing the same thing over and over again. Because I've got two principles. The first one is that if I'm to start something, an initiative, can be a business or something, even if I'm starting to study something, believe me, I'm still studying a lot of things myself. If I'm to start studying, whatever I'm studying, whatever I'm starting to do, it has to be relevant in the marketplace or in the space that I have. It has to be relevant. So that's the first thing that you ask yourself as a young person. What you are doing today, what you are starting today, what you're planning to start today, is it relevant? Right? Because in the Bible, it says that the sons of Issachar, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 32 says, the sons of Issachar understood the times and they knew what Israel ought to do. So you need to understand your space first in the manner of, the territory where you are. And secondly, the season. the time that you are in, and what ought to be done in that season. So sometimes you might be thinking ahead, or you might be thinking of things that are not yet there, but bottom line says that whatever you are going towards, it has to be relevant. And the second thing I always tell people this: it's difficult to grow in crowded places. I'll just take a bit of poetic license and read from Matthew 13 verse 7. You know the parable of the sower, and you know that some seed fell among the thorns. Why couldn't the seed among the thorns grow? It was because the place was crowded. So imagine yourself starting a business, and some people always say Zimbabweans, we're good at this. If I want to start a tomato business, what do? I look for where other people who are selling tomatoes are, and I go and I just squeeze myself in there. So here's the thing, an advice I will give you is that in today's world, you need to stand out from the crowd, because if you are within the crowd, you won't be able to grow, because it's difficult to grow in crowded places. So you start to think yourself, even though I'm doing something that's similar to what someone is doing, but what makes me stand out? What makes me unique? The moment you start doing something that is unique, or doing something in a unique or different way, that's when you start giving yourself space to be able to grow, space to be noticed, and space to expand. So if you're thinking of starting a business, the first thing that you start thinking is, who else is doing this, and who else is doing it the same way that I'm doing it? If they're doing it the same way that I'm doing it, then what will make me noticeable? What will make me stand out? So we call that entrepreneurial substance. When you do something that no one else is doing, or you do something that other people are doing, but you're doing it in a different way, that becomes your entrepreneurial content. It means that that's something that identifies you from that guy. Right? I'll tell you guys, if you go Kumagaba today, you won't be able to tell which guy does buckets better than you. Just know that that's the place where everybody does tin buckets is assembled. So I'll just go there and I'll look for the cheapest guy. You see, or the cheapest guy will give me the biggest bucket. So you need to stand out. Okay, I'm also quite passionate about time, and I've seen this with many young people. In our business, my wife and I, what we do every year is we take at least 2, 3, or 4 students that we go on with attachment for a year or so. And the first thing that I always teach them on is time. Your time matters. Your time is the number one thing that you can invest in life. So when many people think about starting a business, for example, or even advancing their studies, the first thing that you think about is money, about resource that you can ever invest in any life pursuit. And time is also the easiest resource to waste. Even as young people, especially as young people, time is the easiest resource to waste. So do not waste your time. I'll help you to think about it this way. At the end of every day, calculate for yourself, how much time did you spend towards your life pursuits? Subtract TV watching time, subtract WhatsApp time, subtract Facebook time, and then put up a chart. I've got 24 hours in a day. How much time did I spend improving myself, studying, learning a new skill, etc.? How much time did I actually spend working towards this? And if I worked on this, how much did I earn? How much does it take me to earn, let's say, how many hours does it take me, or how many minutes does it take me to earn $1? And calculate, see if it's worth it, because it takes time to make great things, yes, but you must also be able, as David says in Psalms 19 verse 12, help us or teach us to number our days so that we might have a heart of wisdom. So how you spend your time is a reflection on how wise you are before how you spend your money, but how you spend your time, right? So remember, it's easier to waste time than it is to waste money. That's what I found, especially as young people. We think we've got lots of time. It's easier to waste time than it is to waste money. And I'll also say, as Paul says in the book of Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 to 16, he says that make the most of every opportunity. Walk as wise people. Make the most of every opportunity. There are many opportunities that come and go, but because we have invested our time in the wrong things or the things that don't reward, we usually lose out on opportunities. And finally, I'll say, skills is important for young people. So many times we've had to sit with young guys that come to us. Look, I've got an idea, I've got an app, I've got this, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. So the first thing that we ask people is, firstly, are you confident that your business will work? Are you confident that your idea will work? Are you confident yourself before you even commit? Are you confident yourself? Are you convinced that it will work? If they say yes, the second thing that we'll ask is, are you competent to see it come through? Because what we believe is confidence without competence creates what we call con men or con women, if I may say. And we see that a lot of times, young people believing that they are starting a genuine business idea, but at the end of the day, what happens is they end up charging people or doing stuff that is not actually delivering value. So you need to have confidence that walks hand in hand with competence. Because remember, God is not going to bless a con. He's not going to bless a shady business idea. He's not going to bless something that is not truthful. So what does that mean? It means that as a young person, you've got one thing. I believe as a young person, you've got one thing that many people don't have past their youth. That is the time and ability to learn. Learning today is your greatest weapon, your ability to learn. And growth comes through learning. The more you learn, the more you grow. So as a young person, ask yourself, the skills that I have today, am I continuously learning to sharpen them? Am I learning new skills? Because the world we live in today is growing so fast. We have people that leave university, they come work with us or come work for us, and we tell them, look, we have to teach you new skills over again because what you've learned is so out of touch with what we're doing. Not that we're saying university is not important, but understand that learning does not happen in a particular place at a particular time, but learning as a young person is something that happens every day to you. So I'll just leave you with these under skills. I'll just leave you with these 4 points. The first thing is, turn your talents into qualifications. As a young person, have something that proves that you have got something. So don't just dwell on your talents. See how you can turn your talents into qualifications. Grow your qualifications into skills. When you have your qualifications, actually turn them into skills that can actually be marketable. And then grow your skills into competence, that you are actually able to do something and deliver. And then finally, let your confidence be driven by your competence. So that's what I have to share with you right now on how you can grow, not just business-wise, but as a person, as a Christian, as a kingdom person. You are learning, you are studying, you are probably going to start your career, you're going to start your business. So I hope this will be helpful to you guys, because certainly for us as we are running our business, it's something that we are continuously applying every day, and we are also learning even more and more. Amen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simba, for